In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our...
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White. I'm your host, Charles King. Tonight on America in Black and White, we welcome a man whose life work sits at the intersection of healing, identity, emotional intelligence, and social transformation. Dr. David N. Glover is not simply a consultant or strategist. He is a builder of people, a restorer of self-worth, and a voice calling our communities back to truth, dignity, and wholeness. In a world where trauma is inherited, shame is internalized, and systems often fail the very people they claim to serve, Dr. Glover steps into the gap with a message that is bold, compassionate, and deeply human. His work challenges us to confront what we've survived, to reclaim who we are, and to lead from a place of emotional clarity and spiritual grounding. From his I Like Me youth resiliency program to his consulting with leaders, families, and institutions, Dr. Glover is committed to building space where healing is possible, identity is restored, and transformation is sustainable. Tonight, we explore his journey, his calling, and the people who shaped him, including Vincent Morrow, Bishop O.C. Allen, and Bishop Carlton Pearson. This conversation is about healing, leadership, and the courage to build something better. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, looks like, um, oh man, it looks like Dr. Glover is having some issues getting in. Oh boy. Hold on one second, please, and we will get see what I can do to actually get this rolling. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I want to apologize. Well, I have actually made a mistake, and I actually did not send the correct information to Dr. Glover, but he is here now, and so I definitely appreciate your time. Here's Dr. Glover. Hey, Dr. Glover, how are you?
Hello.
Hey, I want to apologize for that mishap on my behalf. Um, anyway, welcome to the show. As we get into the show, as I was just reading the intro and the opening monologue, alluding to the work that you are doing and what you have done. Is there anything you'd like to say to our audience before we get into the show?
Um, well, I'm hearing an echo. Is that on me?
Yes, sir. I don't hear an echo.
I'm hearing one. Hopefully.
What about now?
So I'm very excited to be here. Thank you first and foremost to uh, Charles um, for allowing me space to come and be a voice. Um, just happy to be here, trying to make a difference one person at a time and go from there.
Well, and so, well, before I get into the show, there's a couple of folks. I'm assuming that the people that you shared your link with, that is here, and they have actually, Dr. Glover, your camera just went off. Dr.
Okay.
Glover,
Not
your
sure
camera. There
what
you go.
happened.
Okay. Yeah, there's a couple of folks that's saying hello to you in the beginning here. Um, there's one from. I don't want to say the name wrong, but it looks like that last name is Torres.
Oh, hello. So happy that you all are here.
This is another one here from another person here. With all due respect, they think they're here. And so I like to start first where I like to give the audience the opportunity to learn a lot more about you, the individual, before you became Dr. Glover. And can you tell us who was David Glover before the titles, the degrees, and the platforms?
Uh, David Glover was broken. David Glover was trauma. Um, I grew up in a very religious home in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and it was a very trying time. I loved church. I loved going to church. I was a church kid. Grew up in a Pentecostal, ultra Pentecostal Church of God in Christ background, and so we were in church more than we were at home. About 6 days a week, we had to be at church, and I loved that. However, the church didn't quite love me the same because I was effeminate, because I had tendencies that weren't masculine, reading, and all of those things. They stereotyped me, and this is at the age of 5, 6, so it started off very, very early. Um, so I was a church kid. I loved all the things of church, Bible, all of that, and I was a smart kid. So in school, I made good grades, but because of the reason, because of all the violence that I endured and all of the trauma that I endured, both at home, at church, and in school, it caused a fracture of my person. So before all the titles and all of that, broken, bruised, I tried to commit suicide 3 different times. One at 9 years old, one at 14, and then the last time at 17. So it was a uphill journey.
So, what early experiences shaped your understanding of identity and self worth?
Well, as I was saying, the very first um, thing that shaped my identity was when I was about 7 or 8 at church. evangelist, which is like a leader, came to me, looked at me, and said, "Ugh, you're gay and you're going to hell." And that was immediately an identity and a end result because I'm 7, 8 years old. You've already destined me after a lifetime that I'm just going to hell. So that was my identity that was ascribed to me, right? I didn't know I didn't even know what gay was. Um, so I went and had to work through that. And everything else was built on that. So everything that I tried to do, I tried to be even more church oriented, tried to be even more studious at school, tried to be the perfect child to overturn me going to hell as a gay man or a gay child at that point.
Oh wow. Let me tell you, Dr. Glover, I think stuff like that is definitely not warranted, not wanted. How were you navigating this as a kid? How did you talk about this with your parents, or did you even tell your parents?
Well, so I did not tell my so I told my parents, but because my parents were a part of the problem, my dad actually tried to have, or my stepdad actually tried to have the shock therapy that they used to do uh, way
Yes.
long ago. Um, so they were never accepting of um, of me totally. They loved the fact that I was, very scholastic, that I was very good in church, was almost on all of the boards. But it was like there was this demon that had to be cast out, and it was a reflection on them as parents. So it made it, they felt like they had failed because I was exuding these tendencies. So I didn't have anywhere to go. Like I didn't have because everybody back then, the teacher, even when I would tell, they sided with the kids. Of course, they never, approved of them being bullied and some of the other things, but they still almost felt like, hey, if maybe that'll knock him out of it, maybe that'll bring him, man him up, and if they rough him up and play with the boys, all those type of things. So I didn't have um, a place to go. I really went internal. And so this being or God or, that, from back then, growing up as a child, he became my best friend. And so if you say imaginary friend, he became that. So that's what I used as a coping mechanism and to navigate through was simply, my spiritual life.
Wow. When did you first recognize the emotional weight carried by Black children and families?
When did I first? So I guess the weight, I recognized the weight on my own self um, at 9 when I first tried to commit suicide, where I thought it was too heavy, it was too much. And then after that, 14 and 17, so I recognized those things. So I knew, and I took very seriously when I got grown, children who felt depressed or say I want to kill myself. That wasn't just I didn't make light of it. And some of my, co-workers or other people around me will be like, well, that's they're not gonna like, no, no, no. I happen to know that at 9 years old, you can make a decision and had, I've gone through with it, I would have been dead. Now we have this uprising in the past years of all these children who have been committing suicide um, because of bullying.
So what role did faith play in your early development?
Say it one more time. What role did faith play?
In your early development.
Um, because again, we were so ultra religious, it did ground me in a belief system in something that's higher and more powerful than myself. Um, it navigated my behavior as well, because then I became a child who followed or tried to follow the principles that we learned in the Bible, the Ten Commandments, some of the, those other structures. It did give me an ethical sense as well that I ground myself in today. So, yeah.
Well, I will say this. It seems like, even as times were trying here in the beginning, it looks like you still found a way to be resilient, to make it through those things. What were some of the things that help you to realize, as you're getting through this at the younger stage of your life, what were some of the things that you did to help yourself to cope?
So I would say that truthfully, it was kind of the little things. So the majority of people were, in my view, they were attacking me or antagonists. But I could remember distinct times where I was at church and they were cruel at church. And but there was this one person that stood up for me, or this one person that complimented me. I've had several of those along the way. Even in school, I had a teacher, a band teacher, that knew that, during lunchtime, I had trays thrown on me. They would throw me down steps, of course, back then you would go from straight into recess. And at recess, I should have been on track because they will run after me trying to jump me because I was the fag boy or the gay bag. And so there was a teacher that was like, "Hey, I want you to spend your lunches with me. I want you to do it was like a assistant basically, but just small chores." But the point really was he was shielding me from what was going on. And so in his part, without even naming, "Hey, I know this is happening," or because that could be embarrassing or it could turn whatever way, he just provided an out. And so I look at that, and all the way through my life, I've had little respites of hope, or people who try to shield or guide me or, understand me, even like church mothers who could not say, "I agree with your lifestyle," or "I agree with the bit," or "I disagree with the pastor," but they still, in their way, covered me. Those were little nuggets that kept hope alive, that kept a light at the end of the tunnel.
So, who were the people that nurtured your voice and your confidence?
My voice and you said confidence, correct?
Yes, yes, sir.
So actually, my confidence in standing in who I am would have been Vincent Mauro. He was one that I was probably 12, 13 years old when he came to church. I was born in the same church. It was a small church and developed into a big church. But when he got there, he was openly gay. Um, and he endured a whole lot as far as the antagonism of people saying things and all of that. But he never backed down. He was very courageous and very matter of fact about his stance. And I saw people back up off of him and, leave him alone. They still had their side conversations, but they wouldn't dare step to him because he was very brutal in his responses and how he would respond. Well, that helped say if he can do this, maybe that's the direction I should go, even though I never um, confessed or believed that I was gay at that point. But the fact that everybody believed it, and it was like if you look up gay in a church gay in a dictionary, you would see my picture like, "Hey, here I am," because I was like a mascot, and I had never like I didn't do any of their activities, and, because I believed I didn't want to go to hell. So out of my scaredness, I didn't, participate. But looking at him, seeing him, um, gave me a compass, gave me the nerve to be able to say, "No, you just can't say anything to me," and I take it. And even one time in particular, I remember we were having an event. I was down at the church serving, and they had said some real nasty things to me. And I ended up going to the bathroom crying. I was probably 13, 14. And he came in the bathroom not knowing. I don't think that he knew. He came to, because he had used the restroom. But when he saw my face, he knew I had been crying. And he gave me a chiding. It was almost like, don't you let nobody ever make you feel that low that you go on retreat. You're no better or worse than anybody else. Like, he gave me that talk. And that one talk at 13, 14 lasted me all the way till I was 24, 25. I was able to make decisions for my, and get my own other things. But it was really that core of my teaching, or, of self-worth, self-value, and self-care.
Wow. What was the first moment you realized you were called to help people heal?
I'm sorry, mister. What was the first?
What was the first moment you realized you were called to help people heal?
So, interestingly enough, in the Pentecostal church, they believe in gifts. So they believe that people have the ability to prophesy, to heal, there's different ones. And so one of the evangelists that was running revival, a total different person, actually was my godmother, came. And I remember I was only like 12, 11, and she prophesied that, hey, you have the gift of healing. Now, because in my mind, healing was cancer, blind, all of those physical ailments and maladies, that I would be someone who, called like a healer in that way. And it wasn't until maybe about 7 or 8 years ago, after I had did all of my work, I'm getting my doctorate in psychology and some of the other things, and being a coach and all of that, that I realized that my purpose on earth is to heal, but not in the medicinal type of way of, walking in and even being a doctor or something like that, but the mentality and knowing that our mental, a lot of our ailments, physical ailments, is psychosomatic. So because we have all of these other things going on in our minds, our bodies are not healing itself. Our bodies are not performing at its best selves because of the inhibitors, because of our mental ailment.
Right. So, how did your upbringing influence your commitment to social justice?
Well, being a bully, or being bullied, I found myself becoming a bully. And it wasn't particularly toward like other gay people or whatever, but I became that repeating the cycle or becoming what I hated
Right.
was I could see it happening. And it was like, hey, I don't think that this energy is wrong. I think it's energy. I need to place it somewhere where it's profitable, place it somewhere where it becomes positive. And so that is what actually drove me into being, part of social justice, doing my part, developing programming, developing respite cares that would take on, persons who like even in South Africa, on there and started a community because these stories are just like ours in America, which was very important to me. The LGBT culture there, South although it's not punishable like some other, like West Africa or some of the other places, but they are still going through the same hurdles we are. So it was my lived experience that showed me, hey, once you have been able to overcome or come as far as you have a responsibility to go back and get those coming the same way you're.
Um, what personal challenges forced you to confront your own identity?
What personal event basically formed.
Personal challenges that forced you to confront your own identity.
It was really, and truthfully, I moved to Atlanta from Milwaukee in 2001. I was around 30 years old, like 29, 30 years old. And I didn't come here because I wanted to be gay or I wanted to, self-express myself in a way. I came here still believing that homosexuality was a sin and it was wrong. And I went into seminary. And in seminary, all these things started coming up that made me go back and look at my historical teaching, my historical knowledge and view, um, and really do some digging. And it was literally a conflict between I and God. And interestingly, I was on the side of homosexuality is wrong. And God was ministering, but is it and why? Who told you that? And prove it. And so I went back to that same Bible and pulled up all the things that I knew. And when I did my due diligence and when I did my research, did my work, I found out that it was not. It was not what, they taught it out of ignorance. They taught it out of what they knew, what had been told to them, and what they had been formed to believe. And so in that very moment, I'll never forget that night that I literally came to the conclusion, oh my God, we have been taught wrong for so long. And I started crying. But I didn't cry because of my own challenges and all of the things. I cried because I knew, Charles, I knew at least 7 to 8 people that I went to church with that had killed themselves because the church told them that they were damned. That the church told them that God didn't love them. God didn't even like them. And because they would do all the things like the pray the gay away, fast, all of the things, come to revivals, get all on them, and they would still have these urges. So they was like, something is wrong with me. Because of course there was nothing wrong with God. So the problem had to be with me. And so the torment caused them and drove them to commit suicide. I thought about all those people and I wept because they didn't get the chance I got. Yes, I had a horrible childhood in that regard. I was thrown down steps, as I said, lunch train, spit on, fought, beat up at home, at school, and then the church rejected me. But I made it, and they never did.
Wow.
And so I cried, and that as well propelled me as well as to like, no, I have to be able to stand as a light to say, no, read that again. Research for yourself. Don't just believe because pastor said.
Dr. Glover, that's strength. Would you say that strength came from somewhere within when it needed to in order to keep you to carrying on?
Yeah, I would say it. As I said, I think there was always whatever you want to believe in, higher power, universe, or God. I think that there was always a way of escape, or a way of being able to handle it, a way of being able to bear it. And I can say, even as a little child, I had this resilience thing. Like I just did not believe in giving up, and I don't know where it came from. I believe maybe from the ancestors, all of that, or all of it together. But I've always been one that it was hard to break me. Like I would break you before you break me. And
There
I
you
guess
go.
the more trials, the more challenges and struggles, the deeper my anchor of no, I don't know how, I don't know where, but we're gonna see this through, and I'm gonna be the victor.
There you go. How did you navigate environments that didn't affirm your full humanity?
How did I navigate in environments that were difficult?
That didn't affirm your full humanity.
Yeah. So again, I almost want to say lucky for me, but my path was again, I didn't affirm myself. So there was no need for them not to affirm it. I didn't affirm myself because of my naivete to all things of who I was. Now, after I came into the light, after I crossed over, I navigate because it's still current. because anytime I go back home, I have to face the same things. First, I made a separation until I felt comfortable and I felt I had enough to walk in those rooms. Um, I steered conversation. And so I did kind of those techniques until I was able. Because the one thing I realized is it took me 30 years and I'm living in my own body, right? To come to myself, to understand and to affirm myself. I don't think, even with my mother, I it would not be fair for just because I had an aha moment, you ought to have one too. Oh no, you need to accept me. Well, it took you 30 years. And this is what I tell some of the other ones. Like I have nieces and nephews that came out and they come because I again became the mascot, and they would come to me and they'd be like, "No, they're just gonna have to accept me." I'm like, "Well, no, now I'm not ever telling you to allow someone to mishandle you, but I do want you to be aware of what you're saying. You just now at 25, 23 are coming out. Be fair to them." So navigating is allowing grace. That hey, don't mishandle me. I know your thoughts and what you teach and what you believe. Now, when you're ready to have a conversation, we can have a conversation. Otherwise, you just stay over there, be good, and I'll be over here. And I'll be
So, so what did you have? What did you have to unlearn to become the man you are today?
You said, what did I have to
What did you have to unlearn
unlearn
to
to
become
become
the
the
man
man? Yeah,
you are today?
all of life, all of life. Um, I actually had someone that walked up to me. I had just moved in '09. I had just moved to Atlanta, and they said, "You're looking for truth, but you'll never find the truth you need and that you're really looking for until you unlearn everything and start over again." And to me, it was just like that was insulting, actually, because I believed that I knew a lot, and I was like, I don't need to let all that go. And who are you? It was all one of those. But the truth was, 1 plus 1 is 2,
Okay.
and everything else, algebra, geometry, is stacked upon that truth. If I erase all of that and go and start again, 1 plus 1 is still going to equal 2. So there's no harm in erasing everything and let's start everything and prove everything. Because I've learned that some of those algebraic expressions are not true today. Those theorems we used back then don't stand today. But what does stand is the fundamental truths, and that's what you need, and that's what you build from. So I had to unlearn everything. It was like every scripture I do was under speculation. And to date, I am still learning that some of the things that we were taught are simply a fallacy, are simply untrue, were said out of guilt, grief, or just passed down from people who were unlearned. Think of our forefathers; they didn't know how to read.
Right.
So how did they know how to interpret? No, somebody else gave them that interpretation, and they couldn't find it because they didn't have any understanding to do so. But now that we have that understanding, it's our due diligence to go and validify everything that we know. So I don't learn everything. Just my name. I knew my name.
So let's transition over to your academic and professional journey because I can understand that now that as you're growing and you've made these determinations of knowing what's better for you in your life, and now you're trying to now you're figuring out what path you're going to take. What led you to pursue a doctorate in human and organizational psychology?
It uh it stalled for just a second. I got most of it, but you said what led me in my professional journey.
What led you to pursue a doctorate in human and organizational psychology?
So um I always knew that I loved the mind. So I knew I was going to be in psychology. Um, and so when I got into uh, undergrad, in seminary, even I was still leadership, but my minor was psychology. And so in the reference of psychology, they show you all the different niches within psychology. And so when I saw, and I've always loved, I was always working in organizations, building it, making sure that stuff with admin and executive um, administration, doing all of that. And so the two together was actually IO, or industrial organizational psychology, and I had never heard of it. So when I read about it, I knew that that was my path, and as well, it pays so much more than clinical. So I was like, let me go get what gives me my coin, and then I'll loop back around because I'm actually finishing up my master's for clinical psychology, but I wanted my money. You see.
So how did your academic training reshape your understanding of trauma and resilience?
Um, Let me make sure I have the question straight. That shaping my understanding of trauma from the psychological aspect.
No, no. So no. What we're talking about is how did your academic training, how did it reshape your understanding of trauma and resilience?
Yeah, great question. Because one thing I thought that I would not be dealing with face front trauma when, since I was not the psychologist, the person or psychiatrist that you come to. Um, but even in dealing with human and organizational um, structures and people, it really, I mean, again, you're still dealing with people. You're still dealing with their minds, their behaviors, all of the life. And so the job is to navigate human behavior from a workplace stance, yes, but from a leader's perspective. And leaders have trauma, and so we're still, I mean, so even when I do executive coaching for Fortune 500 leaders who is paying thousands and thousands of dollars per session, I still have to employ, well, what happened in your childhood that causes what trauma shaped the way you think, the way you lead, the way you navigate in an organization. So it still floods in. It's just not as point blank. You don't know I'm coming in there using psychology when you're sitting behind your desk and I'm just interviewing, but I'm using 100% psychology.
Right. What I think is so fascinating and so glorifying about how you were able to rise like the phoenix is that you had the childhood trauma that was psychological, that caused you so much distress that over that period of time, as you pulled that string, you were able to take that trauma, you were able to change it, channel it into positivity, that now you're deciding to have a career that's going to take you into psychology. Can you tell us how were you able to actually manifest from that childhood trauma to the career that you're in now, that you're able to help people in these Fortune 500 companies?
I would have to say I was very intentional about the people I were around, about what I supported myself with. So even when I moved here and then finally realized, oh, it's okay to be gay, and I'm gay, right? I immediately started asking questions. I was very inquisitive. Um, Drag queens, I never had seen one in person until I got here, and they scared me because the only time I had seen them was on TV. So like Two Warm Food, all those different things, which it's not the same, right? But I didn't know any better. Going to a drag show, I had no idea. And so it wasn't until I immersed myself in the culture that I'm sitting next to a person that is a drag queen and I don't know it because they're not on stage, they're not in all of their get up, but I learned who they were. And so I learned how the same we were. We were still people. We had
Right.
like passion, and we were more alike than we were different. And so that's kind of like how I lead. My mantra is like, even in dysfunction, and I deal with high stress, and doctors and lawyers and executives that are very pointed in their mind, and they've been in their business 40 years, so they're not going to listen to it. I need to find that common thread of how we still are alike.
Right. Exactly.
And once I find that, I could tap dance all over you, because I know how to move. As long as we understand that we are alike, it's over. But I think it's about surrounding yourself where you can develop that type of mentality, not choosing to be around people who are just want to whine, who just want to. No, I want to be the beacon of success. When I was when I went to college the first time at 16, and they went around in Black Student Union to ask everybody what was their goals and their dreams, and everybody had these things. I said I wanted to be famous, not because I want everybody to know my name, but I want everybody to have a point that said I can make it because he did.
Right. Right. So you wanted to set that example.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know it was going to cost so much, but.
So, what gaps did you see in traditional psychology when it comes to Black communities?
One more time.
What gaps did you see in traditional psychology when it comes to Black communities?
Sure. So the gaps that I see, and the biggest gap is a, maybe I want to call it generational. I'll fix the exact term I'm gonna say. But coming up, I had, at least in my experience, a lot of people that poured into you, that trained you, that mentored you, and we didn't have those fancy terms back then, right? We didn't have, it wasn't as popular as today.
Right.
And I have seen in our culture, that's LGTB, that is church. I have seen that a lot of my age that was mentors, because even when I was coming up in the LGBT, I wasn't gay, but I had people like the Vincent Morrows that their way of building you up and training you and mentoring you was what we call today reading. You know, the reason, if you do your research, the reason that they did it back in the day, and they did it while I was growing up, was because the world was going to be nasty to you. The world was going to be unkind. And that was one way that you could fight. That was one way that you could get them off of you, if you were swift with your tongue and able to chop them down at the knee. And so they would teach you that. They would sit literally around, and they were doing it, and you knew it was in love, but they were almost sending you home crying. But you built up stamina, you built up reinforcement. And in the church, even though you had things that were going on wrong, you had that church mother, you had that preacher who did take you under their wing, and who did try and pour into you and teach you how to do it. Teach you, we look at the Black church, and we always talk about how it is the breeding ground. Like, you do your first speeches, public speaking, you learn how to be a treasurer, all those things that we had to do in church were really mirroring the things that we do that we could get paid for. The church didn't pay us. They told us to overpay. But that's the gap I see, is that we don't have that anymore. Like, I can see some of us returning back to that, but I see more of our Caucasian doing mentorship, and it's a big thing to get into a mentorship. We did that every day. It took a village to a child. That was mentorship. That was guidance. That was pouring into. But now you can't talk to my child. You don't correct my child. You don't talk to me. And in fact, the child ain't even got to, the parent ain't even going to say it. The child will shoot you for saying something wrong. They feel. So I think that's the gap, that you have persons that now who have the knowledge, who is unwilling to pour because not willing to hear.
Dr. Glover, what I was thinking, in just asking that question and just listening, to you, see, and again, I think this is one of the things that I hope that the audience is gathering from you is your ability to take a lesson and move forward. Because what I was thinking about is that I was thinking that you were going to say acceptance, because that's the commonality in the Black community when it comes to the LGBTQ community. For some strange reason, it seems like it is the hardest thing in the world to accept. It is the most conservative thing in the Black community, where it's like being a part of the LGBTQ community is such a problem. Now, I know that doesn't mean everybody, but the large portion of the Black community is that way. So, as you think about time now, and we're here now in the 21st century, do you think that maybe over a period of time now that there's maybe some learning to that acceptance, that that's a part of the community that has to heal and has to be accepting, has to be loving, has to be ready and able to do this in order to continue community growth?
So I do. And maybe if you had asked me 2 months, 3 months, even a year ago, my answer would have been a little bit curved differently. But today I was on Facebook and I saw an article, or not an article, but a post, and it was Kirk Franklin, who we all know is a very popular, a very forefront of gospel music, and the post was about, I guess, apparently, and I'm wondering, I just saw it earlier this afternoon, so I haven't had time to go dig and kind of get a little bit more, but apparently he has a nephew that is same gender loving.
Mm-hmm.
And the post said that Kirk refused to not love him in spite of his chosen lifestyle. And so the church had some things to say. And it was so paradoxical to me that the loving institution of church that represents the God of love has a problem with you loving. Not even, get this, not even the nephew.
Right.
Okay, that's one thing. I think you're wrong there too. But a person that is, Kirk declares himself a heterosexual, has a wife, has kids, all of their life. But because you want to love somebody, it's a problem. It's like, how hypocritical, backwards is that logic?
Right.
When my mother came to church, and she finally came to the church I go to, which is an affirmative church.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of service, now mind you, she did not want to step foot in that church.
I'm sorry, but I'm understanding you.
Because raised old school, right? You go turn or burn, going to hell. But my graduation, she came down and she was in my second room. And I asked her, I was like, what did you bring for church? And she was like, are we going to that church? Yeah. Where the pastor has a husband, ding, 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 ding. And she was like, do I have to? So I'm going to tell you like you told us growing up. Everything in my house on a Sunday got to get out and go to church.
Oh,
so if
all
you
right.
Find another one, this is what I told her. And I said it jokingly, but she knew I was serious too. I don't know what you're going to do. Because you're coming inside that church, or you can sit outside on the stoop. And I mean, it was pulling teeth all the way into the church. I mean, but by the end of that service, I went to go, like, hey, you ready to go? And she was like, I need to talk to the pastor. She cried. I mean, her eyes were puffy. And I'm scared because I don't know what she's going to say to this man. She's going to try and convert him. Going to try and tell he's going to hear. Listen, my mama gangster. So I was like, I don't know. If she feel like God told her something, I don't know what's going to happen. I didn't even know if I was going to be her child. I was prepared to lose my mother because that's
Right.
how real this that was. And I'm 30 something, so I'm
Right.
still scared. And she went up to him and she was crying, and he was like, "Hey, mother, did you enjoy the play?" And she was, I mean, shaking, crying. She said, "I'm so sorry. I have to repent." And so I looked because I'm like, "Oh, I'm not sure what this means." And she said, "They taught us to hate you all. They taught
Oh.
us to hate you. And I'm so sorry." She said, sitting in that service, God revealed to her the error of her way and how
Oh.
the church was wrong. These are people and they belong to God just like anyone else. Why would you hate something that God still loves and still think that it's okay? And so she'll cry. Now, I'm standing there dumbfounded because I didn't see it coming. But two, why are you apologizing to him? I'm right here. I endured 30 years of torment from your household. Don't apologize to him. He just met you, But it's really, you don't know where people will see the light, when they'll see the light. And so, even in my book, I talk about a different couple instances that I had no idea somebody was watching me or somebody was looking at me. Um, and from that, they were able to have a better life or better decision.
Now, as you were saying how you saw that post, I'm gonna tell you a post that I seen like prior to our chatting there on LinkedIn before the show. And I thought it was funny, but I understood the purpose and the premise because it was one that was so large, and it was basically like, as you said earlier about reading, it was like a read. And this guy he's in the LGBTQ community, and in that post, he was saying, well, I'm not understanding what is going on that you say that you got that these black men are saying whatever happened to black men and masculinity. And so what he did in that post is he pointed out not only did he not understand, he says, because we're right here. So are you saying because we're part of the LGBTQ community that we are not men? He says because when you think about what's happening today and who is working, them black men that are your designers, and he named them all, they're black men and they're working. He says there are black gay men that are in construction, that are welders, they're plumbers,
And always have been.
they're everything, right? And he says, so black men haven't gone anywhere, and if black men are doing just fine. He says, if your problem is with some people in the LGBTQ community, some men that you see that are effeminate, that doesn't equate to all of us. So you can't put us in a category of the sort because as a general and broad and whole, black people are not a monolith. So what do you think about that?
Well, I have a whole lot trying to figure out.
That's a lot to go with that.
It's a lot. I think that there are so many layers, right?
Mhm.
A thing that has been kept down is usually the first thing that pops up. Meaning, doing my research after it, I learned the realness of how culture, Black culture, church will accept you better the more masculine you are.
Mm.
But the
Okay.
more feminine you are, the further away and the more of a detriment you are, which is why and the stereotypes just keep layering, right? Because they believe that then the feminine one is the one that receives, that's
Mhm.
doing the bending, as they would say, right? And you will see even in our culture, our black movies, when a father or mother or somebody asks, when they find out their son is gay, they want to immediately know next who's doing the bending
Yep.
because it is synonymous with effeminate. So if you are bending the person in a construction, we can still deal with you.
Mhm.
We can go under the clause of don't ask, don't tell. But if you
Mhm.
come out here flaming, you want to dress up or wear makeup or wear heels, any of those type of things, we can't. We just can't. I love you, but you just gonna have to go. I can't because our love is stereotypical. It's layers. So just as a thing, when you tell a child, and we all kind of know the psychology of when you tell a child they can't. That's exactly where they try and go to, right? Tell them don't
Right.
touch it. It's hot. That's what they want to tell. Don't go out.
Okay.
Don't try that. That's what they're gonna try. It is the same thing when we talk about the effeminate man because it has been a taboo. It accelerates who are, so they end up being you gonna see while the masculine is doing their daily journey. They're going about their business. But the ostentatious one, the one that's standing out, is the one, of course, not only are they dressing how they want, they're coming to your face so you can see them dress. So now it starts to look like, where are all the, because coming to you is the thing that you defame.
Mhm. Yeah, I just thought that, that post itself was, it was more than just symbolic because the message was received for those that understand how to critically think and listen to what this guy was saying. I agree with him 500% because I think if you look at the world today, I mean, despite how people want to categorize people and classify folk, I do honestly, my opinion, I honestly believe that without a shadow of a doubt, if we had a perfect world, okay, and people could be who they are, I can guarantee you that 95% of the men, 95% would be same gender loving and would be just as free and happy as a bird and wouldn't give life a second thought.
Mhm.
I really do believe that.
Yeah, what's interesting to me again. Um, so again, I grown up. I was a preacher. Still am a preacher, but I was, under the old David, had roles all the way up to elder, so which is right under a path, right? And so when I found New Freedom came, to this affirming church, I, I I was still saying David. I still everything I can do over there, I can do over here. And
Right.
so I used to tape myself, or we are live stream in church, and so I because I'm an elder, I do prayer and do some other things. And so because I found I had these puff sleep
Okay.
and a cord when I did a prayer, and it went viral.
I'm sure it did.
It
I'm
went
sorry,
viral. But the reason it went viral
but
was because of the dissonance.
they
Because
weren't
people were
used to
like,
that.
they enjoyed if they close. Some people say, if I close my eyes, we're good. How is that possible? That my clothes could render what I'm actually providing. Because if I send you $1,000, you don't care what I look like sending it. You're gonna enjoy
That
the
thousand
$1,000.
dollars.
But
Yep.
literally, I've got podcast invites because I became the pastor with the pearls.
Oh,
And to the anniversary, like how things come up in your time feed, a year happened, it went viral again a year after. Now I got a good check from on Facebook because It gave me like $300 worth of views. That's a lot of views. But it was because of my apparel that you're not able to move past that. And so I stand at that intersection. I think some will call it maybe androgynous or something like that.
Right.
Clothes is fabric. It doesn't belong to a girl or boy.
Exactly.
It's fabric. But because of your civilization, westernized thought that women wear this and men wear that, it's a sin. How's it a sin where in Israel they're wearing a dress, a man, because that's their culture. So it can't be culture if God is so big. How did he limit himself down to a pair of heels?
Okay.
You know,
So let's transition over to your organization, I Like Me, your youth resiliency program.
mhm.
What inspired the creation of I Like Me program?
So again, it was literally an extension of my journey. Um, so when I get to my master's program, I they told me, hey, if you are thinking about getting a doctorate, you need to start now building that out in your master's program because you're gonna use all of it and so much more. So pick something that you're really, passionate about, really, And so of course, church, and I wanted to know how did those who were gay bashed, what was your coping mechanism? How did you make it through, right? So those things. And so out of that, in 2020, when everything got shut down, um, I started pulling those pieces together because yes, I can go and speak to a place and pour into them or be a light, a motivational speaker there. But I believe that this methodology, and when I spoke to other people and shopped it around, that it was worthy to be spread wide broad. That people I would never see should be able to be impacted by what I've unearthed through my own lived experience, empirical data, and research and all of the things, right? Put it all together because I saw a lot of empirical data from people who just did some research, not no connection, no, but these are my tears. I Like Me has my when I was beat, right? It has that ingrained in it. And so it hits different. It reaches differently. So even when I've done pilot of it, that was some of the richest feedback I got. Not from the parents who were like, oh, my child has really enjoyed it, or the teachers who were there, they really enjoyed it. From the children that came and said, Mr. Glover or Dr. Glover or Dave or whatever, how much impact it had on them. That was much more meaningful than everything else. Now, yes, I want to get paid. Yes, I want it because that's what's going to help it, the engine run and get spread abroad. But even those pilot gave me, okay, the confidence, the seal of approval, like, yes, it really is something to give back.
So what emotional wounds do you see most often in Black youth?
Well, we're living in a day where everything is a wound. Like everything is trauma. Everything, and I'm not, as a mental health practitioner myself, I'm not diminishing, but I think our Black youth is really, for me, it's like this. I'm not being seen. No one sees me, and that's my trauma, my pain. Everybody's so dismissive because everybody's in their silo, their own stuff, and our what happens here stays here. Still is impacting those who don't know any better, don't know to go find safety. So the wound of parents dealing with their trauma, not having the time to deal with you and really nurture you, because I'm I'm trauma informed. So my decisions come from my trauma.
Now that's actually a little deep, because when you think about trauma and how that just works out, that, as you say, that could be anything. But when you think about, especially with how your program deals with the youth, I mean, your program more of the inspiring things for these youth from a mentoring perspective to get them moving on the right track and to keep them on the right track, or is it a whole lot more that's in addition to that, that's helping these youth that may be in underserved and marginalized communities?
So when I started out the program, it really was about the disenfranchised totality, um, and LGBT had, you had a track as well. It has since really grown out into still those, but even those re-entry. So I know you had last week, I believe it was, you had a guest, Karinsky, I think. I hope I said your name right. Um,
Yes, yeah, Karinsky.
yeah, who works with DJJ and is part of that juvenile justice system. But so many of them are not able, again, back to that trauma that you said our youth is exposed to, or they're not seen. So they're just kind of tossed away. More than some of the ones that, may just be, and I'm not diminishing them either, that just have trauma from home and some of those things. But those who, usually from that trauma, make those mistakes or make those choices that lend them and lead them down a wrong path to be, in jail time or, any of those type of different organizations and corrective actions. There's not a real program that really nurtures to them. There's monitoring. There's those that say, hey, you have to do this, you have to go, real parole like, real, binding, but nothing nurturing to pour
Right.
into them to make them have worth to say, I'm going to make better choices because I'm a better person. I'm valued. They are more devalued. So they feel like, well, what else do I have? I've met people that says, I don't mind going to jail because at least I know I'm getting fed. And they were young. They were like 22, 23. They knew where their next meal was coming from. Or they were in gangs, and at least they knew they were going to live. They can't kill me in jail. So for me, it becomes more encompassing. So those conversations and that need is very high. Even when I looked and did the research, of course, due diligence to see like what's out there already. Who are my competitors? You're looking at people that's just thriving off of them being in jail, right? You're looking at investors that are counting on you.
Oh, in a wrong way.
Yeah, to go to jail so I can get more money because I have an investment. So I need you to build on a couple more because that's gonna pay me back with dividends. So, but who's on the other side saying, "Hey, I know you made a wrong choice or three, but you have value."
And and see, I think that's one of the things though that's within our community, especially with our youth, which is just in conjunction with not just what you do, but the purpose of this show is to give that light, to shine that light, so that the youth and those that are still a part of the underserved, marginalized communities can know that people are actually putting forth an effort to help you with the resource to move forward and to be better. And so, just with that being said, and with I Like Me, can you tell us like how long has I Like Me been around? And with it being around for however long it's been around, what are some of the stories that you can tell us about what it's done, to make an impact?
Yeah, so I Like Me, as I said, I came up with kind of the blueprint and kind of worked everything out in 2020, 2021. So about 2020, end of 2022 to 23, I had my first pilot, which I found one of my associates, my friends, who is a psychologist, but also over the youth at our church. I was like, this is the perfect way to at least make them my guinea pigs, right? Hey, and they'll tell me the truth, and then we can go from there. And so then every year after that, there's, I don't if you've heard of Gilead Sciences. They're very big HIV, AIDS awareness, all those different things they use. There's a conference that they have every year, and every year since I want to say 2023, I've ran this program with youth, and it's just general youth. It's not. I mean, they're disenfranchised. Some of them have come from. We've had those who come from actual. What is it? The halfway house. I call them halfway house, but I forgot the proper name for the youth. Come from those shelters, or those correction facilities, even. And I've run the program. And again, the program has seemingly been successful. Like we ask those who are self-facilitating and those who are, the adults. But what's more impactful is when a participant will stop me to tell me either their story or how they're coming through or ask for direction. Wow. I will almost rather ask for the direction type thing because to me, that is the epitome of a youth that trusts you.
Yes.
But you don't know me. You just saw me here doing this. You don't know who I am, that I have, you know what I'm saying? But whatever I said, however I showed up, however I presented, you value enough to say, I'm going to be intentional to talk to you about me. Mm-hmm. And trust that whatever I'm going to say will help you. Because they're not wasting their time talking to people. So for me, having that as people coming up and no, let them stand here. I'll take, in fact, I'll end 10 minutes early, let somebody else do the final end. So I can start having as many conversations as I can. Because yes, I want to see the pilot go and work and do all the things, but I want to be able to touch individual lives. As many as I can, yes. But to me, it makes my living worth it. It makes my suffering worth it. It makes all of the pain, all the tears, all the times I stood in front of the mirror and said, you're ugly, to myself. Those times I stood in the mirror and said, you'll never be anything like they said. They're right. To myself, it makes overcoming that, pulling myself up by my own bootstraps, because I didn't have nowhere to go. In my mind, if I went to the church, they wanted to cast the demon out. If I went to my parents, I was shameful of them. If I went to my older brother, he wanted to man me up because he didn't want to have a little fruity little brother. If I went to the school, there was nowhere to go. So if I could be the thing that I wish I had and make somebody else's life better, I don't mind.
Wow. That's deep. That's deep. And we appreciate you so much for that. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's being intentional. Mm-hmm. How does shame show up in young people?
How does shame?
Yes.
It shows up in a myriad of ways, right? It shows up in attitude. You find that sassy look. There's usually some trauma connected to it. They learned that as a shield and a protection. And bullying, those who are bullies have a trauma. There's a reason why. They feel a deficiency within themselves. And usually the person that they're bullying is the person that they actually want to be like. So they got to find something to pick at you with. It's almost like how do you say boys when they like the girl, they do the little love taps. And
yes.
It's the same thing. It's the same psychology roadmap. But in this instance, they're not happy with themselves. And you seem like you're happy with yourself. So I'm going to just talk about you. Same thing when you talk about people who, when you say, like, oh, they think they're so smart. Not actually, you do.
Exactly.
That's your word. And because you feel it intimidates you, you now need to take that out on me. And that's a shame. There's shaming. Somebody has told them you dumb little girl, and they believed it. And now
Right.
when it comes to school, they feel shame. So now they gotta act up. Now they're gonna get mad and do all of those antics because you feel shame because I don't get this. That is only proof they were right. I am dumb, right? Um,
Right.
so I would say usually in an anger way. They haven't navigated enough to have emotional resilience and emotional intelligence of how, hey, let's, they know just to explode.
So, now this question that I'm about to ask you now, I mean, I really know that this is a deep question, and I hope that you could really give us a concrete answer here. What does identity reconstruction look like for a child or teenager?
What does identity?
Reconstruction.
So I think there used to be, when I was much younger, um, on a wall, it was like a plaque or maybe, and it used to say stuff like, it was a long one, but it was like, if a child is raised in, have like hope, they experience or they present it in one way. So I think that was very true. It's more real now to me than just reading it as a child and maybe a young teenager. I think the construction is the surroundings that you allow your child to be around that affirms them. Um, that doesn't mean them because sometimes a child is going to make wrong decisions. They're going to make not the wisest choice. What you do in that moment when they're wrong matters more than what you do when you celebrate them for being right.
Okay.
Because if you reject them and shun them and ostracize them for the wrong thing that they did, they internalize that and realize that's what they should do for themselves. So anything that they do minor wrong spirals them. Versus saying, well, how did you get there? What did you think? And give them critical path thinking.
There we go. There
Then
we
they're
go.
able, even when they make the wrong choice, they're able to back out of it and learn from it, right? And so many children then just mimic what they see right because they know they won't get in trouble, not even understanding why they're doing the right thing, right? Goes back to church as well. They know that this is everybody celebrates people who do this, not knowing that may be damaging or that's a trend. It's going to be different. Live a little longer. It's going to be totally different. They're going to find out that no, that's not the right thing. We should have never did it. But if you had been the critical thinker, you could have been the light in the room.
Right. Exactly.
Is that actually the best? Like they used to have the in church, if a woman got pregnant out of wedlock, she had to stand in the front of the church and repent. The man didn't, but she did.
Okay. That scarlet letter all on her head.
I asked my auntie because they were still. I'm grown. I was like 21, and this was still going on. And I asked, "How is this possible?" More, how is this? How I said we must think that we're better than Jesus. Which really, I knew that was pushing a button because like I said, we must be better than Jesus. What do you mean? We don't condone sin. I'm not here for that. But I am here for your Bible said that a lady was caught in the act of. She was still going.
Mm-hmm.
She hadn't climaxed yet. And they pulled her off and brought her to Jesus just like that. That's your Bible.
Yeah.
And he said without thinking, he didn't make her sit down or apologize. So how are we better than Jesus that they got to apologize in front of us mortals, where You calling the King of Glory and God incarnate shouldn't have to apologize at all. Why are we better? And with that, they changed what they did. But if I was going for the goal, I would have been right with, yeah, we don't sin. Because I don't think we do. It's right, but look at your practice. Look at your behavior. You're shaming somebody. And if one sin is not bigger than the other, why does she need to repent and we don't?
Ooh. Oh, okay. See, that's
you need to stand up here and say you lied.
Right. Wow.
Otherwise, you're lying on one side. Pick which lie we're going to practice. Because we're not doing, both of them can't be true.
Right. You're absolutely right. How do you teach self-worth in a world that constantly attacks it?
One more time. I missed a bit of it.
How do you teach self-worth in a world that constantly attacks it?
I think, again, for me, I always try and find the common denominator between, one, I think you modeled it yourself. I think that's the greatest teacher. Just as I said, Vincent modeled it for me. He never had to tell me, I think I'm, he didn't have to. Because even at 12 and 13, I knew what he was, he valued himself. In a world that devalued him, in a community that said you are damned to hell, in a community that said you don't come by my child, you know, like he was a pedophile. In a world, because I came up during that time, we had the AIDS epidemic.
Yes.
So he was working against a whole lot, but he showed up, did not stop. That without words was the best example of self-worth that I caught and modeled myself and didn't tell him. We didn't have no meeting. We didn't have all I want to be like, I just knew that was the way to go. But also building an affirmation and treating everybody equitable.
Right. So let's transition over to Black History. When we chatted, I told you we do Black History 365, and I asked you who were the most influential people in your life and your career. You told me it was Vincent Morrow, Bishop O.C. Allen, and Carlton Pearson. Can you tell us, how did Vincent Morrow influence your leadership style?
Well, I bet he's kind of been a central theme throughout this interview. So just, recanting that his tenacity, his courageousness, and his relentlessness to be authentically himself. I couldn't articulate these words back then, but that's what it was.
Right.
And although I couldn't say these words, some of them I didn't know, never heard of some of these words. I knew what it was, the substance, which is most important, I understood. And that became my leadership, that I lead by example without, no one had to call me deacon, nobody had to call him elder. He wasn't none of that. He was a choir sissy is what they called him.
Look, well, Vincent, if you're watching, I hope that you contact me.
I'm gonna send it to him.
We'd love to have you come over here come on
I'm
the
gonna send it to
him. What lessons did you learn from watching his discipline and integrity?
Was that a question?
Yes.
What did you said nerve and integrity?
What lessons did you learn from watching his discipline and integrity?
The truth is, I learned who I was. I would have never been able to say that, and I never would have said that back then. But the truth is, you know how you say people of like nature, like birds of a feather, will flock together?
Yes.
Even in my fullest denial of who I was, I knew I was exactly like him. And the parts that I could accept about him were the parts I could accept about myself, which happened to be those characteristics, because I saw the worthwhile of them. And I saw that they could not be subdued. You couldn't conquer it. And I knew I was of like nature. You weren't gonna conquer me. So let me thank you. I see you. Thank you.
Wow. So how did he shape your understanding of Black excellence?
You know, for me, so especially thinking about now, my thinking now. So he was a local choir member. Really. That's all he was. And I'm looking at, even now we think about the Jesse Jacksons and Martin Luther King, all those names that is in everybody's history book. And they are Black excellence.
Right.
But he brought something that none of them could ever bring to me. Is a lived, breathing example of day to day. So it's wonderful to know how Martin Luther King stood for righteousness and stood for equality, but it's better that I can see Vincent standing for you won't treat me right. I belong here. His I belong here was more impactful because I can touch it versus I can just read about it.
I like that. So tangibility is the realness. What did Bishop O.C. Allen teach you about radical inclusion?
What did he teach that was radical?
No. What did Bishop O.C. Allen teach you about radical inclusion?
Nice. Radical inclusion. I want to say that he brought an awareness of it, right? The articulation of it, as well as the struggle of it. Because a lot of times we see the accolades, we see the accomplishments, but there's also treasure found in the failures. There's treasure found in the places that didn't quite make it because it humanizes us. Because when I grew up, the pastor could do no wrong. And so I felt short of that. So I didn't feel it was unattainable.
Okay.
So I couldn't be included in that because I have flaws. I don't always think right. And now I'm working on behavior modification instead of a transformation.
Gotcha.
Right? It's not about the place of my heart. It's about doing the right thing. Which should flow from my heart, but I'm going the wrong way. I'm trying to make the act flush out my heart versus my heart being flushed so my acts can follow.
How did his ministry expand your understanding of spiritual belonging?
Well, so the very first thing was the fact of his ministry existed. I had never been to nor heard of affirming churches.
Okay.
If you had told me there's a gay church, I would have thought it was a church that did not believe that homosexuality was right, but all the gays go there. I knew plenty of them. Plenty. I knew that the pastor, there were churches that the pastor was not married, but he had an assistant. That was very assisting in all ways. I knew about pastors that had a wife and a boo. But all of them preached the same doctrine that homosexuality is wrong.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So the audacity to exist where you appreciate same gender loving was iconic, mind blowing, and I thought I was going to have an aneurysm when I first came there because it was a trick. My best friend that was from Milwaukee with me knew that I didn't believe in that. When I first got here, again, that was and he brought me to that church, not telling me what type of church it was. So they get up and acknowledge the pastor and the first gentleman, and that was a problem. That was a problem.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this, because just in listening to you say that, was this still at that point where you weren't able to accept you for who you were and all those other good things?
So it wasn't even acceptance at that point. It was a step before acceptance. I had to understand that there's something to accept.
Okay.
I was so far removed and worked so many years. You're talking about 20-something years that I never had a relationship. I never dated a girl or boy. I never, all of that. So I hadn't even. No.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, what impact did his leadership have on your emotional intelligence work?
It was really to the in seminary they call it extrapolation. So you extrapolate. So that's just you read a scripture, but we need to know what that scripture is about. We need to know who wrote it, why did they write it, what does it mean? Is it even applicable to us today? Right? All of those things. So just the goal to still be sanctified in the abominable thing that puts you out of sanctification. Like you got put out of sanctification. And you're going to call yourself still sanctified, but completely a demon is how and to walk in it.
Look, use the church language, the wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah. I don't know. So he wouldn't even qualify for that because he wasn't in no clothing. He wasn't trying to dress up nothing. That's somebody that's trying to, appear. That was the pastor that had a wife and husband on the side. Those was wolves, and he was a wolf in wolf clothing. He came and said, "I am." In that analogy, he would be the wolf in wolf clothing. You know good and well what I'm here for. I'm not trying to hide anything. And that type of transparency, that type of audacity was mesmerizing. Like, what? Yeah.
So, how did Bishop Carlton Pearson influence your theological evolution?
So, Bishop Carlton Pearson, I watched him from, they would say, a wee child. When I was like 4, 5, 6, 7, he was on TBN and all of those church channels, right, which was mainly Anglo-Saxon, our cousins, and he was a black face there because he went to Oral Roberts University. But he had an uncanny ability to speak Greek, all of the things that seminary would teach you, but it was just like, it was like he was saying his last name and tell you who his brothers were. He was speaking out what people had to research for, it was just fluid. And it was always this attractiveness to his due diligence, his because remember, I'm a church child, a church kid at that point, so I'm reading the Bible, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just at the pastors, and all they can preach about is Paul and Silas, the 3 Hebrew boys, and Daniel. That's all they had. Where he is just going everywhere. I mean, and so when he came out as he wasn't gay, he was but he believed, I forget, inclusion, doctrine of inclusion. The church demonized him.
Oh wow!
He lost everything. Now we're talking about by that time he was a mega pastor. He wasn't a pre-T.D. Jakes.
Yes.
In fact, he mentored T.D. Jakes, like just to get some gravity around how much he had. Houses, churches, all of that. Had separate look at all the things. And lost everything, all the way to his wife. Because he believed that God loved everybody. He dared to believe that God was for everybody. And it did not matter about your, innuendos as far as like who you lied to. That had nothing, that was not sin.
So, what did you learn from his courage to challenge tradition?
I learned, and I can almost cry because when he died, he still died in a very low place. In other words, not being restored, or he didn't have a comeback story. And it's like, for me, his courage was that he didn't sell out. He didn't turn back. He didn't relent on his newfound truth. And for me, it was like, oh my God, David Glover, are you ready? And are you committed enough to your truth that you're willing not to come back? We hear about these underdogs and they end up, never happened for him on this side. It may happen because a lot of times, we come to our senses years later and be like, he was the father, but he don't hear none of that. And how did you go through that same role?
See, I think it sounds like the two of you have a similar story, because I think in challenging tradition, it sounds like what he did was he was more than a trendsetter. He was what religion is supposed to be about, because it's accepting and loving of all. And most pastors, as you mentioned earlier, don't preach that, because there's like, oh, we got the outcast, this, that, and the other. But somebody like that, I think everybody would have fell in love with him as a pastor. Can you hear me?
I think I just lost you. Say it again.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Well, so last question for you. How did his journey shape your understanding of grace and liberation?
How did his
journey shape your understanding of grace and liberation?
Woo. I see you did a little work, your research yourself. So it is really, for me, it shines a lot to me, and it illuminates the places that I have yet not shown grace. It continuously puts me under the microscope and said, David, yeah, that's not right. You still have preferences that are not radically inclusive. You still, and it's okay that I'm not talking about like you gotta like everybody in your company and invite them all up. No. But there's some separate subtleties between being discriminatory and just a regular person. It's like, no, I don't like pasta. So I'm not gonna want to go to Maggiano. But it's different than demonizing Maggiano ain't no good. That pasta ain't no good. There's a difference. If that's what you like, do you? No harm done. And so it keeps that journey, his grace, all of the things that he taught. It's always a reminder of how I have to forever renew myself and like, hey, are you really showing love today? Radically. Are you showing love preferentially?
So, in closing, can you, what are the words of wisdom and encouragement that you like to leave with our audience? Tell them how to connect with you via your social media. Tell them how to get your book, your website, all of those good things.
Sure. So the word of wisdom that I will leave is, one thing is, know that you are enough. All the good, all the bad, in between. You are exactly enough. Comparison is deadly because none of us, I don't care what we have, what we don't have, we can find somebody that's better than where we are and that's worse than where we are. We all can. So comparison means nothing. You are the best you can be. You really got to believe that. And always accept you. Talk to yourself. And I'm a psychologist, so I'm all right. I talk to myself because I need to audibly hear sometimes my own words of affirmation that I messed up. But David, tomorrow's a new day. In fact, it's a new minute. We're gonna fix it and move forward. Because the greatest person that you look up to had some worse days. And you got to remember that. So I am Dr. David Glover. You can find me if you're looking for the I Like Me side. It is I like it's I like me.org. It's a nonprofit. And then all of my other things that I do as far as training and all of those things is under Dr. David N. Glover.
And how can they get your book?
Yeah, all my books are there. I'm actually on my last tweet of my upcoming book, which is called Sissy Boy. So look for that. That's gonna be wonderful. Yeah, that's you can find it all there.
Okay. So before I close, I'm going to do a closing monologue, but I want to ask you, can you stick around for a few minutes after I close?
They can get my book. Yeah, they can get the book online. Did you say something else?
Yeah. No, I said I'm going to do a closing monologue, but after I do the monologue and I close out the show, can you stick around for a few minutes? Okay. For those of you that are watching, especially on our YouTube channel, I appreciate you for being here tonight. You guys have just got a really, really, not just a great story, but you see what it's like and the resilience of never wanting to quit, but always being who you are. This story that we just got from Dr. Glover is a story that we can take going throughout the rest of this year, and knowing that we can all be resilient and we can all do our due diligence and all be our best selves. So for those of you that are watching on our YouTube channels, if you have not subscribed yet, I would appreciate if you could support us by subscribing and enabling all notifications to to the channel, so you can get the shows live when they first go live. Or you're able to go back and relook at, you can watch all of the shows, but you can also get the lessons from all of our professionals that have been here, that are doing work in the community to help build and make us much, much stronger together, united and not divided. So in closing, Dr. David N. Glover reminds us that healing is not a luxury. It is a necessity. His work calls us to confront the stories we've inherited, the wounds we've carried, and the identities we've been taught to shrink. Through emotional intelligence, cultural truth, and spiritual grounding, he challenges us to reclaim our worth and build communities rooted in dignity and accountability. As we close tonight's conversation, we honor the leaders who shaped him: Vincent Morrow, Bishop O.C. Allen, and Bishop Carlton Pearson, and we honor the work of Dr. Glover continues to do in their lineage. His message is clear: when we heal, we lead differently. When we know who we are, we build differently. And when we reclaim our worth, we transform the world around us. This has been America in Black and White. I'm your host, Charles King. You guys have a great evening, and please watch our show tomorrow evening at 6